2023 has not only been an incredible year for single-player video game releases, but also for multiplayer titles. And while we've seen our fair share of flops, they're far outnumbered by the amazing co-op and competitive releases of the year. So here's a list of the best multiplayer games of 2023.
Exoprimal is definitely one of the lesser known titles on this list, which may come as a surprise considering it's made by Capcom, the developers of Street Fighter, Monster Hunter and Resident Evil. And although it's definitely quite a departure from their previous titles, as a team-based action game with the twist of fighting against and occasionally as enormous dinosaurs, we really enjoyed it. The campaign is certainly pretty underwhelming, with a series of cutscenes unlocked by playing multiplayer matches, but the actual gameplay itself is surprisingly fun, with impressive armies of prehistoric beasts and a decent amount of playable characters and abilities. So for that at least, we feel it deserves a place on this list.
Arizona Sunshine 2 is the only virtual reality title on this list, and for good reason. The way it blends interactive and satisfying VR gameplay mechanics with a relatively lengthy co-op supported campaign is unfortunately something we rarely see in the media, and not only is it ambitious, but for the most part, it also excels at everything it tries to do, implementing one of the most impressive canine companions ever seen in a video game, and a variety of locations, as well as some truly amazing set pieces. So due to the lack of substantial co-op titles playable in virtual reality, we feel that Arizona Sunshine 2 definitely deserves a mention.
Sticking with zombies, Dead Island 2 is yet another outstanding display of undead excellence, with a truly disgusting but equally commendable amount of gore and beautiful environments in an apocalyptic depiction of LA. Parts of its structure can feel a little outdated, but it more than makes up for it with the integration of co-op into its campaign, making some of its elements that would otherwise stick out as pretty rough around the edges almost entirely unimportant as you're tearing through zombies with a friend in truly wacky representations of iconic locations.
Meet Your Maker is one of the most unique games to release this year, letting you explore entirely player-created levels packed with enemies and tons of deadly traps. It also takes place in a fairly interesting world with an intriguing narrative alongside the action. It isn't a core focus, but the world building and general theming of the game really help to establish its own distinctive identity. And of course, it's made even better by the support for co-op in both playing and creating levels, easily making it a standout title in terms of multiplayer compatibility.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre takes the already popular genre of asymmetrical horror and applies it to the world of the 1974 classic, and in our opinions, very successfully, with well-designed maps and intense gameplay that makes playing as both victims and family equally as enjoyable. The frantic sense of teamwork is really well done, and even though we aren't huge fans of similar games such as Dead by Daylight, we both really enjoy playing in co-op.
Party Animals is yet another example of a 2023 release repurposing a popular pre-existing formula, and we think that it's equally successful, taking inspiration from physics-based arcade-style titles such as Fall Guys and Gang Beasts, and applying the template to a large variety of incredibly entertaining minigames. And of course, it wouldn't be on this list if it wasn't even better in co-op, with plenty of opportunities to mess around with a friend, or many of them in a custom game.
Sons of the Forest is the much anticipated sequel to 2018's co-op classic The Forest, and despite some sky-high expectations in an early access release, it seems to have met and in some cases exceeded the critically acclaimed original, featuring even more terrifying enemies and the new addition of friendly NPC companions, which not only make the single-player gameplay a lot more viable, but are also entertaining and almost as helpful when playing co-op. And that's really the best part of the game. Surviving in a hostile world with friends can bring out some hilarious moments, while also feeling rewarding as you learn to thrive alongside others. And thanks to its multitude of substantial content updates since release, it's a very easy recommendation.
Remnant 2 wears its Souls-like influences on its sleeve, but unlike its inspirations made by From Software, you're able to experience it in its entirety with up to 2 other players. And with its beautiful and varied locations, it's easily one of the most worthwhile worlds to explore. And on top of that, it's also got some incredible boss fights and really impressive enemy designs. It really is something you ought to experience for yourself, not only for its breathtaking locations, but also for its engaging and satisfying combat, especially in co-op.
There's a very good reason for Baldur's Gate 3 winning Game of the Year at the Game Awards. After all, it's practically unrivaled in terms of freedom of choice, character design, and an overwhelming sense of scope. Top that off with it being fully playable in co-op, and you've got yourself not only one of the best games of the year, but of all time. So I can safely say that as a game, it's easily of the highest quality on this list. Honestly, I think it's better played in single player, and considering this is after all a multiplayer list, it doesn't quite reach the #1 spot, but I can't stress this enough, it really is close.
Bread and Fred is simultaneously extremely fun to play with a friend and impressively frustrating, making it one of the very best rage games ever made. So as long as you aren't prone to destroying controllers and keyboards, we definitely recommend it.
Moving Out 2 is a sequel to 2020's physics-based moving simulator, complete with all new minigames and lots of crazy co-op antics. And although it hasn't seen much commercial success, we did really enjoy it.
Lethal Company has taken the PC gaming platform by storm, rising to the top of Steam's bestsellers and receiving overwhelmingly positive reviews. So even though we're yet to play it ourselves, I think it's a pretty safe recommendation.
The finals may seem like just another multiplayer FPS game, and while the foundation is certainly there, it makes a notable renovation of fully destructible environments. And while it's hard to see whether it will stick around for just a few months or multiple years, we can definitely say that we're having fun with it.
And finally, taking the #1 spot is the Outlast Trials. Going into this game with little prior knowledge of the franchise, I wasn't really sure of what to expect. But after putting in over 50 hours of gameplay since its release, I can safely say that it became my favourite multiplayer release of 2023. Even from the moment I entered the Murkoff facility, I was instantly immersed in the sterile but deeply unnerving social space that you practically live in across the events of the game. In this area, you're able to play mini-games with friends that feel naturally suited to the environment. And after completing each trial, you'll earn cosmetics that you can use to decorate your character or even a unique room in the facility. And even as someone who doesn't play any live service games, this gameplay loop felt really rewarding and helped to reinforce that feeling of wanting to do just one more trial, which quickly turned into 2, then 3, and so on until I was too tired to keep going. And even though there are technically only 4 main trials, the modifiers and smaller remixed MK trials really help to keep things fresh. This is also helped by the variety of locations that are uniquely horrifying yet incredibly well designed and equally immersive, ranging from a police station to an abandoned amusement park. These environments are the backdrop to some truly terrifying moments, with randomized encounters and atmospheric effects that keep you on your toes. Even in co-op, this game remains consistently scary, with some clever tricks to mess with you and your friends. And after what's probably approaching around 100 trials, I'm still occasionally caught off guard by some truly commendable dynamic moments. And without any proper weapons to take down enemies, it's this feeling of triumph over insurmountable odds that kept me coming back to the Outlast Trials. And that's why it's Cyberstuff XR's multiplayer game of the year.